in the life of Christ, right? The life of Christ through the church, through the life of the church, what's happening? They're creating an intimate relationship with whom? With Christ, right? That gives them meaning and purpose, okay? So, now, what's actually happening within our minds when we feel pleasure, when we feel this pleasure and love? Basically, there are about 100,000 chemical reactions that happen in the brain every second. 100,000, okay? There are a lot of, so now we're shifting into, from finding meaning and purpose to what actually is happening in our brains when a person is addicted, when a person is, wanting to fulfill that desire or pleasure, what's happening in the mind. So chemicals enter into the body, tamper with these chemical reactions, and it alters brain chemistry. In other words, when you're biting into a chocolate donut, there's a lot of things that's happening in your brain, which is particularly a place in your brain called the limbic system, in which that's the pleasure part of your brain. It releases chemicals, and you feel a sense of whatever feeling that you get from eating a chocolate donut. Okay? Of course, we cannot describe it. It's a good pleasure, isn't it? Right? So automatically, what your brain is associating is with whenever you see, not even you don't have to eat. Whenever you see that food, automatically your brain starts to say what? I need it. I need it. I need it. Right? Doesn't it? I mean, have we experienced this? So when we are hungry, when we're passing by through food to restaurants, what do you experience? You automatically, your brain starts to say what? I need it. I need it. I need it. I need that pleasure, right? So your brain, when you bite into a donut, what's happening is it gives a sense of pleasure through the chemicals, neurotransmitters, fancy word, those who have taken biology know this, neurotransmitters called dopamine, endorphins, and serotonin is being released that gives you a sense of pleasure, okay? Now, so these chemical reactions are happening in your brain, and whenever you feel a sense of pleasure, your mind automatically provides an emotional attachment to whatever that gives you pleasure. Okay, does that make sense? So you're emotionally attaching yourself through the pleasure that the body experiences. Okay? So the question comes to the point where, okay, so why is that people are seeking so much pleasure in their lives? Okay? I mean, in an unhealthy way. We all seek pleasure, but we see individuals who seek pleasure in an unhealthy way, in a manner that has no barriers whatsoever. So the question comes, why are we not happy? Why are we seeking pleasure so much in an unhealthy way to the point where we become addicted to things? So the question is, of course, because of stress from family, parents, siblings, school, peers, church, right? So just imagine stress, right? Just imagine living with family stress, parents, school, peers, church, day in and day out. What kind of life is that? Is that a happy life? Is that a happy life? Would anybody here would like to live with all these things in their life every day? No, right? So what is that feeling like? So somebody tell me a feeling that's attached to experiencing this every day. Just imagine you're living through all these experiences every day. What is the feeling that you have inside? Yes?
You get angry.
You get angry, absolutely. What else? Depressed, yes. Overwhelmed, yes. Frustrated, yes. What else? Hopeless, absolutely. Hopeless, okay. What else? Lonely, absolutely. Lonely, Anxiety, yes, yes. Anxiety, you become anxious, right? Can you concentrate in school? No. Can you concentrate in church, in prayer? No. But you know what? Your body automatically says, because you're living with so much sadness, loneliness, depression, all these things, you have to change the chemical reactions happening in your brain. Your body automatically starts creating coping mechanisms. Okay? So in other words, if I'm about to hit you right on your head, what is your automatic reaction? You will move your head at the same time. There was something that would happen to your body automatically. What happens to your hands particularly? Your hands would automatically go up, right? Right? That's an automatic reaction, right? Of your body. Same way that happens to your mind as well. When your mind is living with such hurt, pain, frustration, your body starts creating these coping mechanisms. So it starts to find instant pleasures. Okay? So somewhere, somehow, all those individuals who were struggling with all these addictions previously, somehow their body, somehow they experienced, I don't know, deodorant smell, or somehow they somewhere had a small taste of sand, or the smell of human waste, or whatever it may be. It triggered a sense of pleasure in their mind. It triggered something within their mind that caused a sense of what? Pleasure. I know it doesn't make any sense, but this is how the mind works. It makes no sense to us rationally, but this is how biologically how we are wired. Okay? So what happens is this. Automatically when you feel pleasure, now does the anxiety remain? Does the loneliness remain? Does the pain remain? No, it goes away. But what happens? It's instant pleasure because it gives you pleasure. What happens when the pleasure runs out? What comes back? The feelings return. Loneliness, hopelessness, sadness, depression, all those things comes back. So what are you doing now? You want to say, wait a minute, I just felt pleasure before. Let me do that again. Let me do that again. So for some, it's eating. For some, they were so depressed and sad, they started slowly eating, and then their eating capacity increased and increased and increased. The pleasure of eating filled up that void that's in their heart. That loneliness or depression or that sadness that they felt inside. So what would they do? If they're feeling sad and depressed and lonely every day, their mind is saying, wait a minute, you don't have to be this way. Change your chemical reactions in your mind. Go do blank. Does that make sense? Does that make sense? So it is a defense mechanism that the body and the mind creates together. Now, we start creating and finding ways to cope. Okay? Now, let me talk about this also as well. Relationships and addictive behaviors. This is very important as well. Now, we spoke about substances creating pleasure within our minds, right? Well, guess what? It's not only substances that create pleasure in our mind. There are individuals who create pleasure in our mind. There are individuals who create pleasure in your mind. Now, I'm not talking about anybody specific here, but there, especially in teenage years, there are people who we become attached to as friends or whatever it may be, boyfriend, girlfriend, right? Now, how does that attachment come about? It comes about maybe from first looking, right? From seeing the person and feeling attracted, physically attracted. And then it comes from talking. And then talking becomes talking at night, right? And then from that, from texting, from emailing, from Facebooking, and from FaceTiming, and to something else, right? You know where I'm going with this, right? So, guess what? That's exactly how people ended up getting addicted to drugs or alcohol, right? Same way, we can wire our brains to get addicted to a person, or an idea of a person, or a personality of a person, okay? So this is something you get to watch out for. We create attachments through our bodies and our minds. Very, very simple example. The church fathers say this very clearly. When you are talking to the opposite sex, you should always keep in mind that the devil will use that opportunity to get you somewhere else. Okay? Fathers are very, very clear. And one of the obvious things that the church fathers always point out is the worst thing that you could do to yourself when it comes to relationships is to talk to the person who is in the opposite sex, especially at night. Because that's when your body slowly starts to shut down and your body becomes very vulnerable. When your body becomes vulnerable, who takes precedence? The mind. The mind takes over, especially your back of your mind. Okay? Because it's saying, I'm tired, it's the end of the day, and you know what? I want to rest. I need a sense of pleasure, right? Do we get pleasure from sleeping? Absolutely, right? That's why our body slowly shuts down by the end of the day. So when you are speaking to that quote-unquote person at night, you are creating an attachment, an instant pleasure with that individual. So be careful. That's all I'm saying. Okay? That could lead you to something else, just like any other substance. Okay? So it creates thoughts, memories. It becomes so strong in your mind that you will be attached to that individual, that person, that substance throughout the day. Right? The person comes to your mind all the time, or that substance comes to your mind all the time. When you automatically feel depressed or sad, what you want to do is you immediately want to talk to that person. Right? This is unhealthy attachment. This is an unhealthy attachment because as Orthodox Christians, who are we supposed to receive source of healing from? Christ. It is an alternative. Instead of going to Christ, we have created attachments who give us instant pleasure or instant getting rid of loneliness through other individuals. Does this make sense? Does it make sense? So, but at the same time, keep this in mind. We could create getting pleasure, not instant pleasure, getting pleasure out of having an intimate relationship with Christ. And that's what we are seeking through the liturgy, through the sacraments, through the prayers, through the life of the church. But what we do is this. That's too hard. I gotta stand up in prayer. I gotta do prostrations, right? I have to actually go to church to do this. While I can just pick my phone and have everything right on my palm. Right? We choose that option because it's easy. Right? So keep this in mind that people, kids ask, why can't I be in a relationship? Everybody's in a relationship. Why can't I be in a relationship? Everybody has a boyfriend. Everybody has a girlfriend. Why not me? Well, this is one of the reasons. Because you haven't learned to cope with your own life. And you're going to use that individual as a tool for nothing but pleasure. That person will become a toy for you in your life. Okay? Now, when you end up having that experience, what happens? If it doesn't work out, then you're stuck with the person's memories. And that will haunt you. The memories of talking to that person. The memories of being with that person. And the pleasure that the person gave you. That's stuck with you. And you have to deal with that. You have to deal with that with your spiritual father. Right? So, these are the risks that you run when you enter into a relationship in an unhealthy manner, without a spiritual grounding, without an emotional stability. Okay? Now, our thoughts creates behaviors as well. Many of us, all of us, including myself, these thoughts constantly haunt us. We say to ourselves, looking at the mirror or looking at ourselves and saying, you know what? I'm not good enough. I'm not intellectually great. Spiritually, God hates me. I'm not appreciated by my parents, my friends. You know what? I'm not good enough to be in this. I'm not good, period. Right? So what happens? When you constantly say that to yourself, or what the fathers would say, the devil telling you constantly, even without your permission. The devil doesn't have to have your ear to talk to you. The devil could talk to you constantly saying, you suck. You look at the other person. He's so built. Look at you. Look at the other girl. She's so much beautiful than you are. The devil will constantly play with your mind. But if you yield to it, I guarantee you will believe it as well. I guarantee you would believe it as well. If the more that you dwell on those thoughts, you will believe it at the end of the day. Okay? Now, of course, this image, I think it speaks volumes. Not only for women, but also for men. Men, boys, when they start working out, all of a sudden they flex in the mirror. They're like, Arnold Schwarzenegger's picture, like